ましょう作りましょうさてさて何ができるかな
Remember how I said you could do pork katsu with a curry? Well, today we are making Japanese curry. We're going to do a vegetable curry because I'm going to do it with some leftover pork katsu, which I'm going to heat up in the oven so it gets all crispy. And this is a mix for the sauce. It has English and Japanese directions on it, as well as microwave and stovetop directions. I just picked it up at the regular grocery store. Okay, and this is a potato, which I'm going to add. Just wash it off real quick. The veggies that you add is all up to you, all up to your taste and how much you're doing. So I like to add potatoes and carrots as well as the onions, which is what the recipe calls for. It calls for onions, but you can do whatever you want other than that. And then we're going to peel it after washing it off because we don't want any of the skin in the curry because that just kind of throws the whole thing off a bit. Okay? Now, if you have little divots in there, little bits of root, those are called eyes, and just go ahead and you just scoop them out with the edge of the peeler like that, and then go ahead and go to cut it. First we will cut it in half like that, and then turn them flatwise so they're more stable, and then I'm going to cut them into thirds because I find that easier for cutting them evenly. And then we'll cut them like that, and go ahead and cut them in as evenly as you can. You don't want them too big because the more even they're cut, then the more even they'll cook, and you want everything to be about the same doneness. You don't want a hard bit of potato in the middle of your curry. It'll just ruin your whole night, I suspect. Okay, and over there. And for the carrots, these are baby carrots, which are already cut a few inches, and then they are peeled. But you can use the regular carrots. That actually works out better because they're little, then you have less to grab onto. So pull a few out there. And there are two ways you can do it. You can cut them just straight down like coins, just a normal slice for the carrots. Or you could try and be a little fancy and cut it at a 45-degree angle and then turn it, and then cut it at the same angle and then turn it again. And see how that was all difficult there. And that makes a cute little triangle shape. But because these are so little, that's really awkward to do. So I'm just going to do the regular coin chop. Okay, and now we do the onion, which has been peeled already. I'm just going to cut it in half just like the potato. Then I'm going to cut off the root and the stem because we don't want any of that in our curry because that would be yucky. Do it on the other half also while I'm at it. Now, just like how I cut for the oyakudon, I'm going to cut them into long strips diagonally, but you can cut them just straight up and down if that is your preference. This recipe actually calls for it to be chopped, or diced rather, but I prefer large pieces in my curry. So I'm just doing slices. Just like that. Okay. And you can cut just straight up and down if that's easier for you, but I like them to be a bit more uniform and all nice and pretty like that. And pick up the rest there. Okay. And now go over to the stove. We have a nice big pot. See, nice and big, because I'm making a lot of curry. It's dinner tonight. It's all nice and warm, so I'm going to add the oil. And get as much out of there as I can. And then go ahead and add the onions also. See, look at all those onions. Now, if you're making a meat curry, you would go ahead and you would add your chicken or your shrimp or whatever meat you're doing. You would add this at the same time that you're adding the onions, and then you're going to saute them in the big pan, in the big pot, so you don't have extra dishes later by adding everything together. Just go ahead and cook it in the same pot you're going to be using later today. And so you cook them until they start to brown. See how pretty that looks. And then go ahead and you're going to add whatever other vegetables you're going to do. Whichever ones you want to do. You can do green peppers. if you want. I'm just doing potatoes and carrots. It's a lot there. Big family. Okay. So there. And then going to mix it. You're just going to integrate the onions and the potatoes and the carrots as best you can because you want the potatoes and the carrots to cook evenly. You don't want crunchy carrots and then really soft potatoes. You want everything to be nice and even, and then you go ahead and you add your water at this point too. Keep in mind, the more veggies you add, the more water you're going to have to add. Otherwise, they won't all be covered and they won't cook evenly. And the more water you add, also the more diluted your curry turns out. So you go ahead and you let that boil. Then after it boils, you turn it down to a simmer and you put a lid on and you just let it simmer for a few minutes. If you're doing a meat, then go about 10 minutes for that, just so the meat can get cooked all the way. And now we're ready to add the curry. This is how it comes out of the box. It's in a tray like this. You pull off the cover, and at first it looks like one big brick, but it's actually didn't mean to do that. It's actually segmented into little 5 pieces, because that way you could do just one serving if you want, and you just break off one piece and just cook that, so you don't have to cook it all at once. Okay. Doing second one, which you probably won't. Probably just do one part of one thing of curry unless you want to make up a whole bunch and then just keep it. So you go ahead and you stir that until the curry melts and it's dissolved. And then after it's dissolved, you let it simmer for about 5 minutes or so it can thicken. Okay, so here it's all nice and dissolved, nice and thick. Also has to do with the potatoes in there. That really helped with the thickening in that. And I have here a leftover pork katsu from before. So I heated it up in the oven for about 5 minutes, and I turned it over, and then another 5 minutes because I wanted it nice and crispy also, and didn't want it to be soggy. I'm just going to plate that on this rice real quick. Just like that. And I'll go back over to the stove to our curry. Alright. See, it looks so pretty already. Let's put the curry on it. Now, the curry isn't really spicy because Japanese curry is more mild than Indian curry. But if you do find it kind of spicy, you can just eat it with more rice, and that'll help tame it for you. And there you go.